This episode of Small Business Bestie is sponsored by Cultivate Accounting. We're all that and a bag of chips, and we've recently added Lexington's favorite tax pro, Mike Rosine, to our team. Combined with the best small business bookkeeping pros, we're ready to help more besties than ever. We offer a free 30-minute review call each month to review your financials and answer your questions because your numbers should empower you, not overwhelm you. Visit cultivatelex.com or find us on Facebook to learn more. Hey besties, welcome to another episode of Small Business Besties. My name is Michelle Smock and I am your host, and today I am also the guest. So this is not really the episode that I had intended to record this week. I had a guest planned and things came up we weren't able to record. And so I just dug deep and tried to think, what is something that I could talk about this week that we all need to hear? And usually when I'm in a situation like this, the answer is almost always whatever I need to hear in that moment. Probably there's somebody out there that needs to hear it too. So I'm preparing to go on a little mini CEO retreat. It's intentional in the fact that I know right now I need a reset in my business. I need a reset for my vision and my values and my goals and all of those things. And so instead of just taking a vacation to completely unplug, I'm taking a very intentional time to reconnect with what my values are, what the vision is for my life and for my business. And I'm going to use that time to really get clear on those things. And so today I just kind of wanted to talk through, what does that look like as the CEO of a small business when you're especially a solopreneur, or even if you just have a small team? What do those retreats look like and how often should we do them? And so today that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the mini CEO retreat, what it is and how to do one. So I'm going to encourage all of you, if you're in a place where you can grab a notebook, this might be a great episode to jot down some notes and do some reflection as you go. But if you're busy doing chores, doing dishes, maybe you're driving, that's okay. But maybe come back to this and think through some of the prompts that we're going to go through when you have the time. So the first thing that you would do for a CEO retreat as a solopreneur or a small business owner is we're going to take time to pause and reflect. And there are three basic questions that I use when I'm doing this pause and reflect time. And the first one is, what's working? So I think it's always important, whether we're doing a meeting with ourselves or if we're meeting with our team or even our clients, we should always start that meeting on a positive note. Think about the things that are really going well. So what's working? And when I do this, especially as a solopreneur, I'm not just talking about what's working in the business. I'm talking about personal and professional wins. So for an example, if I were doing this as a little mini retreat just for a couple hours, if I needed to refocus in my business or even just doing a check-in with myself, my wins for the past couple of weeks, I've been working on switching from caffeine and alcohol fueled life. It's kind of been my routine over the past couple of years. I drink coffee all day until the evening, and then I switched to cocktail hour and I have a couple cocktails in the evening. And I wanted to kind of move away from that and see if I could get into some habits that were a little more productive and hopefully a little bit more sustaining for longevity for my life. And so I've been working on switching from caffeine and alcohol. In the morning, I'm using functional mushrooms, so like a mushroom coffee replacement. I've actually found that I really enjoy that. I've got a couple things that I add into it to kind of help boost some other health benefits. And then in the evenings, I've been switching to Apothecary is the name of the brand, but some functional herbal tinctures that I've been adding into mocktails to give me that feeling of relaxation, to give me that feeling of like a treat at the end of the day to help me wind down, but without the ill effects of alcohol. So that's a personal win for me. I feel really great. My body's feeling better. I'm feeling clearer mentally, getting better sleep, all of those things. Huge win. So for the business, my wins would be, I finally decided I'm just going to lean into Small Business Bestie. And that's kind of scary because I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I am leaning more into that. I've finally started making progress on creating those networking events that we've talked about over the past couple of months. And I'm leaning a little heavier into creating that community that I really see as a possibility. So I feel like that's a huge win. We had our first cocktail hour at Jay Render's last week. It was lovely. We had several women show up for that event. We had some really good conversation. In fact, I think Pamela Honchel is working on a little event for us, maybe. We kind of kicked around the idea of how fun it would be to do a thrifting adventure with the besties to just kind of build that community, build some deeper friendships, and know that we have a real squad on our side. So be looking out for that. I don't know how much progress she's made, but it was a really fun idea and just a really great night. So I'm really proud to be facilitating those types of events for everybody. And then finally, I joined a new B&I group, and I feel like that's really working. Very much enjoy all of my new B&I members that I'm getting to meet and connect with on a deeper level. So that's a huge win for me. B&I has been something that I've thought about off and on over the years. I thought maybe it was too rigid, too structured for me, but it turns out I actually like that in a networking group. So that's been a huge win for me as well. So the second thing we want to think through is what's not working. Now, this can be a little harder to come to terms with because sometimes we don't really want to be truthful and honest with ourselves about what's not working. And kind of a key to this is if it feels sticky, if it feels like maybe you don't want to go there, you probably should go there and explore whatever that thing is that isn't working. So for me in my personal and professional life, I don't schedule enough downtime for myself. I do not leave holes or gaps in my day to just take a breath. And I know that that's a problem for me. I know that because I feel it in my body. I feel it in my spirit. I feel like at the end of the day, I finally wind down around 9-10 o'clock at night. And then I just lay in bed thinking through all of the things that I didn't really have time to process throughout the day. So I know for me, a huge problem is just not scheduling enough downtime. And kind of rolling right into that is overcommitting. I'm a yes person. I love to be able to say yes when a friend asks for a favor or they want a one-on-one to get to know me better, or there's an event that I really want to be at. I have fear of missing out, FOMO so bad. So I overcommit constantly. Again, I know this is a huge problem, and that's both a personal and a professional problem for me. And then another area that's not working for me is planning well enough. I talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago that I've implemented a new AI assisted calendar called Motion. It's working really well to help me plan better. I feel like I'm way further along than I was a couple of weeks ago, but I still know that there's a lot of improvement that could be made. And I think that like having to record this episode on the fly is just a perfect example that I am not planning well enough. I don't have enough, uh, you know, reserves, if you will, especially when it comes to the podcast. I should have, 4 or 5 episodes just ready to go to release, but I just haven't put in that planning. And so this is just me being real and raw, like I always am. You guys are seeing a glimpse into the struggles that I have as a business owner. And as always, it's easy to like point out these problems in other people's ventures and their businesses and their lives. It's really hard oftentimes for us to implement them in our own lives, our own businesses. So even though I know to do better, I don't always do better. So we think about what's working, what are our wins, what's not working, and then we start to think about what do I need to do to shift? What movement needs to happen in the business so that I have more wins in the business, right? So that I'm making further progress. And before we can really get into that, we really have to go deeper into making sure that we are aligned with our values. And then we can decide what needs to shift. So before we get into the shift, what I really want to talk about is thinking about how you make decisions in your life and in your business. And is that from a place of values or is that from a place of reaction? So when we use values to make decisions in our business, it really takes the guesswork out of things. Whether you are talking about a decision with people in your business, so whether to hire someone, whether to counsel someone on ways that they aren't living up to the expectations, whatever the issue is with people that you're having, if you run that decision through your values, it makes the decision very easy. Same thing with trying to decide maybe new services or products that you may want to offer, or maybe some that you need to take away. Maybe you're thinking about whether to buy a new piece of equipment for the business. Any of these decisions can be filtered through the values that you set for your business, and then it takes all the guesswork away because at the end of the value assessment, you will absolutely know whether or not you're making the right decision based on the values that your business holds, or whether you're making a reactionary decision based on something other than your values. So I'm going to give you an example of what the values of my business are, and then you can kind of decide if something like this fits with your business, or if you really need to go back to the drawing board and create your values in your business so that you have an easier way to make decisions. I'm a sucker for an acronym. I love wordplay. I'm a word nerd. Had I finished college, I would have ended up with a degree in English. So it makes sense that my values have to be an acronym because that's just the kind of weird word nerd that I am. So in my business, my values spell out the word bestie. So it's an acronym for bestie. The B is bravery, being brave in your marketing, in your branding, and how you show up in the world. It means being willing to stand out a little if you have to. So bravery is one of my values. Empathy, I believe that leading from your heart, whether you're dealing with issues with your clients, with your team, with your community, or with yourself, having empathy for people's situation and, things that are behind the scenes and just leading with love and empathy is always going to be the best answer. S in Bestie is simplicity. So one of the things that I tend to do is to overcomplicate things. I want to find all of the best solutions. I want to try to implement all of the best strategies and technologies and all of that. And sometimes I can overcomplicate things. And so simplicity reminds me that I need to focus on the bare minimum, like what is the best possible solution that keeps things simple and creates a system without chaos. The T in Bestie is for trust. I believe in trusting in your gut, trusting the process that you've created, and most importantly, trusting your people. Again, whether that's your team, your community, your clients, and we have to learn to trust one another so that we can all help one another get further in this world. The I in Bestie is integrity, so doing the right thing. And this comes from my military days. The right thing is always the right thing, even when it's the hard thing to do. So showing up with integrity, showing up as the same person, whether I'm here on the podcast, I'm at a networking event, maybe we're doing a one-on-one on Facebook, it's doing what I say I'm going to do. And then finally, my favorite one is energy. So you can use this one in a lot of different ways. Energy for me, maybe it's I show up with energy. Maybe it's that I bring the fun to the situation, but it also could be protecting your energy, protecting the vibe that you have. And again, this is something that I struggle with. So if I were better about making decisions based off of my values all the time, it wouldn't be so hard for me. And so I think it's really important that when you're creating the values in your business, create the values based on what you actually want for your life and from your business. So that's how I've created mine. Again, I like the acronym, so it's B.E.S.T.I.E. Creates my values. And then anytime I have a decision, I can run that decision through those values and say, does this align with what I want? So let's say I want to bring on, someone to help me with social media. I can go down through that list and say, is this helping me to live more bravely? Is this helping me to be more authentic? Is it helping me to be more empathetic? Am I going to be able to show up for people better? Does this simplify my life? Am I enabling a trusting relationship? So as you can see, you can walk down through all of your values and say, does this align with my values? And if the answer is yes, it's an easy yes, move forward. And if the answer is, I don't really know, then, maybe there's a little bit more digging to do there to see if it's the right decision for your business. Now let's talk about that piece that we talked about, what needs to shift. So what goals do we need to set? What do we need to do differently? And one of the main things that we need to think about when thinking about goals in our business is creating goals that are grace-filled, right? So giving yourself permission to ditch the guilt-based goals. And what do I mean by that? Guilt-based goals are those goals that you think of when you think, I should do this. All successful businesses do this, X, Y, or Z. Or, in my case, a successful coach would have X amount of clients. So I really need to push further for more clients or whatever the thing is. So those guilt-based goals, what do you think you should do based on other people's success? Or are you making a goal based on a fear of judgment? If I don't do this, people might not take me seriously. If I don't do this, I might not be seen as a professional. And so you're making a goal based out of fear. And then another one that we get caught in a lot is that comparison, right? If I'm not doing that, then I must not be as good as them. So if I'm going to be as good as them, I have to do the same type of thing. This just simply isn't true. I don't care what industry you're in. Creating your goals based off of comparison is a really easy way to create a lot of shame in your life. So I would just challenge you when you're creating your goals, don't get caught in that cycle of creating your goals based off of fear, based off of shame, based off of comparison, or based off of what you think you should be doing based on anybody else's ideas. So what you should do when you're creating your goals is you should create minimum goals and stretch goals. And it's really important to have both types of goals. So minimum goals are kind of your baseline. These are your non-negotiables. These are the bare minimum wins that even if on your worst day, you could just do this, you're winning. So your minimum goal should be based on consistency over intensity. So think, instead of saying my goal is posting daily, you could think, I'm going to post at least one time a week. That's your minimum. If you've done that, you've done something. It may not be the absolute, but you've done something, and that's a goal. So maybe instead of saying, I'm going to send I'm going to create a fancy funnel where anytime somebody clicks on my website, they go into the funnel and they're, receiving an email every 3 days with a call to action and all of those things. Maybe instead of making that your goal, your minimum goal is, I'm going to send at least one email to my email list every month to stay engaged. Maybe instead of saying I'm going to fill my entire calendar all month long, you say, I'm going to book 2 clients this month. So those are your minimum goals that, hey, I can say that I have a goal, I've achieved the goal, and there's consistency there. Now, when you're setting your stretch goals, that's where you get kind of crazy. This is your big, bold visions of your goals, right? So these are your dream goals. You don't have to hit these to feel successful, right? And that's the important thing to remember. When you're setting your stretch goals, I also like to call them your BHAGs. Obviously, I didn't coin that. But if you're setting your BHAGs, your big, hairy, audacious goals, right? Then if you don't hit those, you've probably at least hit your minimum goal. So setting those stretch goals, those BHAGs, if you will, just gives you something to work towards. It doesn't mean that you're a failure if you don't achieve them. But if you do, I mean, what a cherry on top, right? So your BHAGs are going to be based on growth and possibility. They're based on courage and curiosity, and they're based on vision and experimentation. So you're doing things that maybe you haven't tried before. Is this going to work? I don't know. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. If it does work, man, what if I landed 8 clients from this one thing that I tried? So those are your stretch goals, your BHAGs. It's really important that we have both of these, the stretch goals and the minimum goals. If you're only setting stretch goals, it can lead to burnout or feelings of failure. And when that happens, that kind of feels like that's when everything starts spiraling down in life. And that's when I can absolutely guarantee my kids are going to get sick. I'm going to have issues with my computer. I'm going to start feeling emotionally drained. And my car is probably going to break down too, right? Like, it just feels like when that starts to happen, the whole world starts to stack against you. And so I would encourage you not to only set BHAGs, not to only set stretch goals and compare yourself against these really audacious things that you want to achieve, but instead set some minimum goals so that you can continue to make progress. Now, what would happen if you only set minimum goals? If your goals were, I'm going to send 1 email a month, I'm going to book 2 clients a month, and you only set those goals, you're going to keep yourself small. And you're not going to leave yourself enough space to grow and stretch and try to push the envelope, right? So it's important that we have both the minimum goals and the stretch goals so that we have this area of fluidity to give us some space to grow and learn, but without the pressure of, if I don't achieve all of these things, I'm a failure. And then, everything else kind of tumbles downhill. So when you're setting your goals, think to yourself, is this goal rooted in the pressure to keep up with others, to perform up to someone else's expectation? Or is this goal rooted in purpose? Does it align with my values and my vision? And that will help you to get really clear on your goals. So now let's think vision. And this is something that I love to do. When I work with people, coaching them, my favorite thing to do is the very first session together. We think through your vision, your values, and your mission. If you're not really clear on those 3 things, it's really hard to know where you're going in your business. So the vision has to honor the season that you're in. And so I think it's really important that at least annually we are revisiting the vision for the business and for your life because things change. 12 months is a long time to go between checking in with yourself. Is my vision still what I said it was last year? Any number of things could happen that would kind of alter your course of where you think you want to go with your life and with your business. And so when I do this, I think, what do I want my life to look like and feel like in 5 years? And as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or small business owners of any type, we know that our business is intrinsically tied to how our life looks and feels to us. So if I were to go through what does my vision look like for my life and my business 5 years from now, I can easily tell you a couple of the things that would be most important. 5 years from now, I want to be able to take 2 weeks off every quarter. So every 90 days, I want the last 2 weeks of that quarter to be no email, no phone calls, no meetings. I want 2 weeks off. Maybe I want to travel. Maybe I just want to sit at home and enjoy the house plants and the neighbors and my kids. And I want to cook. I just want to have that capacity to have 2 weeks where it's about me, my family, my experience. I want my mornings to be slow. I want to be able to wake up and maybe take a walk or do some yoga or do a centering practice. I want to be able to spend time with my kids as they're getting ready for school or about to start their day. I want my mornings to be slow 5 years from now. And I want to have a vacation or an investment home somewhere warm and on the water. Now, I will tell you guys, I recently, in the past couple of years, have developed Raynaud's syndrome where my feet and my hands go numb, they sting, they turn white, I lose all circulation in my fingers and my toes. Anytime it's honestly below like 60 degrees outside, which is awful. So for me, having a vacation or investment home somewhere warm that I can go to when the winter months come here is going to be top of mind until it happens. So if I can make that happen in 5 years, man, what a great vision for my life. And then finally, I want 10% of my time and money to be committed to going to UR and the William H. Carter Community Centers. UR is the nonprofit that I support that helps women and girls globally. And then the William H. Carter Community Center is a local nonprofit here dedicated to preserving the history and the building that serves as the community center downtown. I also want to have deep friendships with people that I love. Being a transplant in a new city, I don't have a lot of super deep friendships yet. I know a lot of people and I love a lot of people, but I want to deepen those friendships. And I want to have, at that point, I will have been in Lexington for 9 years. I want to have friendships that are 9 years old that I know I can still trust and count on these people in my life, and they know they can trust and count on me. So then after you get your vision of what your life looks like and feels like in 5 years, you can bring it in a little and say, okay, so if that's what my life is going to be like in 5 years, what is it going to be like in 3 years? So this is your 3-year target. When you're thinking about your 3-year target, you think, what would success feel like in 3 years? If I felt successful in 3 years, what would be true? So for me, having the Small Business Bestie coaching programs going strong, having this podcast completely handled by other people except for the recordings. So I still show up to do the recordings, but there's editors and producers and social media team and all the things kind of handling the behind the scenes for me. And then I'll be serving on a board or otherwise contributing to organizations that I believe in and that I want to support. And finally, I would purchase a home in Lexington. So those are kind of my 3-year targets. Those are things that I know have to be true in order for me to feel successful 3 years from now. And once you've set your target for 3 years, then you can break it back down 1 year from now. What are the goals that I have to accomplish in the next 12 months that are realistic and exciting to know that I'm on pace to hit my 3-year target? So for me, it's going to be things like refine and document the Small Business Bestie coaching, the boardrooms, the podcasts. I've done a lot of work on that, but I need to continue to refine those processes and document all of that. And I need to build Small Business Bestie, the Facebook group, to 1,500 members and encourage better engagement. We've got a really great group of women who come together and help one another. But if I could encourage better engagement in that group, build a stronger community a year from now, that I know will put me on track to be on target for my 3-year goal and my 5-year vision. And then finally, I want to launch and successfully and finally, I want to have 2 bestie boardrooms going concurrently at all times. So each quarter, I want to have those boardrooms filled with the right people so that we have the most incredible engagement and productivity from those boardrooms as possible. So what are the things that we have to think through when we're thinking about goal setting, visioning, and creating our targets is we have to realize that there are seasons. Just like a mentor of mine once told me, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard this too, that in friendship, there are people who come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So they're either there for a reason to maybe teach you a lesson or help you learn something. They're there for a season to help you get through a period of time. Maybe you needed extra support during that time. And so someone came into your life to help you through that season, or they're there for a lifetime. And we have to be able to differentiate and appreciate each of those types of people that come into our life. We have to be able to appreciate and differentiate the seasons of our businesses as well. So in business, the seasons that we kind of go through, we have building, testing, pivoting, and growing. And so, like a brief timeline for me in the past couple of years, I can tell you in 2022, we built Cultivate. We founded Cultivate in 2022. 2023 was a year of growth. We were growing, we were networking, we were marketing, we were adding clients constantly. 2024, we had kind of hit that ceiling. We didn't really have the capacity for a lot more clients. And so we were resting and just kind of uh, enjoying that period of recovery and rest in our business. And then in 2025, it's been a year of pivoting. I've decided to leave Cultivate as a owner. I still am on the marketing team there, which I'm super excited about. But Cultivate is pivoting, right? And then if you bring that into Small Business Bestie, 2025 is going to be building and growing, right? So that's the season that I'm in with Small Business Bestie right now. So it's important that you know what season are you in your business right now, because your vision and your goals are all going to be dependent on where are you, what season are you in. And maybe for some businesses, the seasons fluctuate quickly. Maybe it's quarter by quarter you're into a different season. And maybe for some businesses, that's a slower pulse. And so it's, maybe years you stay in the growth phase before you rest. And maybe the pivot doesn't come for 10 or 15 years. So each business is different, but it's important for you to evaluate and recognize what season am I in currently? And if I want to transition into a different season of my business, what has to happen differently for my vision, for my target, and for my goals. So that's a lot of information about kind of the CEO mini retreat, resetting, revisioning for the business. So I'd like to challenge you. If you haven't been taking notes already, I'd like to challenge you to go back, try to grab the highlights. It's going to be in the show notes because I use AI to help me with all of this. So it's going to break it down for us and give us the highlights. You can just grab those show notes and use those as a way to journal and use them as a prompt, if you will. If you don't do any other journaling or thinking deeply on this episode, the one thing I do want to challenge you to is to think to yourself, if I fully trusted myself and my business, what's the next bold step I would take? So if you truly trusted yourself and your business, if you had no doubts, if you didn't let that fear creep in, what's the next bold step that you would take? I'd love if you guys would want to send me your answer either in a DM on social media or even put it in the Facebook group. I'm going to post this episode. So you could find this episode post in the Facebook group and drop your answers in that comment section, and we can all encourage one another and decide how we can help support one another in those ways to take that next bold step. I want to also tell you guys about the Bestie boardrooms. Now, I mentioned these a couple of months ago. So what those are is a mastermind community of 5 to 6 women who are either solopreneurs or small business owners who don't have a large leadership team to lean on within their own organization. So you guys all know I'm a huge fan of the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, and one of the most important principles in EOS is having weekly leadership meetings, or level 10 meetings, where you check in on, are we hitting our KPIs? Are the goals for the quarter on track or off track? And what issues are we having in the company that we need help solving? And when you're a solopreneur or a small business owner without that leadership team, it's really difficult because these things need to be talked about. These things need to be tracked, and you need to be held accountable for them, but you don't always have the team to make that happen. So the vision with the Bestie boardrooms is that we get a group of 5 to 6 women. We come together confidentially on a weekly basis, and we report to each other on our KPIs. We hold each other accountable. Are we hitting our metrics? Are the numbers there? And if not, what is going wrong in the business? What are those issues that need to be solved? And it's a place for us to generate ideas together, right? If you are facing a problem in your business, there's a very good chance that someone in this room has either been through it or knows a good tool or resource for you. So it's a great sounding board. It's a quarterly group. So we're going to meet weekly for 3 months, beginning in July. And so for that 3-month period, the investment is $300. So that gets you 4 hours of group coaching per month for a full quarter, so for 3 full months. So it's a very small fee to be in a community of women who can help hold you accountable, help you generate ideas, and honestly, just to be that sounding board for one another to help encourage growth and success in our business. So you can check that out on the website. I'll leave a link in the show notes and on all the social media posts so that you can easily find that. But we are launching that in July, and I would love to have you guys in those rooms with me. I'll be facilitating the weekly discussions, and we're going to use a lot of these tools that I've talked about today to help us create that vision, help us create those goals in the beginning so that we know what we're holding each other accountable to. So if that's something you're interested in, I would love to see you there. As always, please share this episode. If you have a small business bestie that you think would get some value or insight out of this episode or any of the others, please feel free to share those episodes. Invite your small business besties to join us on the Facebook group, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, besties, that does it for today. If you're interested in becoming a part of the Small Business Bestie community, join us in the Facebook group or find out more information on the website at smallbusinessbestie.org. Please share the podcast with your friends who could use a friend in business. And it would really mean so much to me if you follow the show and take just a few seconds to rate or review. A 5-star rating really helps the show become visible to other besties who may just need the support and friendship that we offer.